We're often told that good leaders manage teams, and great leaders have a vision. We celebrate figures who are decisive, strategic, and brilliant communicators. But what if that's only half the story? What if the most powerful leaders in history, the ones who built empires and changed the world, didn't just rely on their vision or their iron will? What if they mastered a single, often forgotten trait that gave them an unstoppable edge? It wasn't just their ambition that carved their names into history. It was a secret weapon. A weapon that, once you understand it, will completely change how you see leadership forever. Think about the leaders we admire. Figures like Julius Caesar, Winston Churchill, or Abraham Lincoln. We study their strategies, their speeches, their political moves. We're taught their success came from being smarter, faster, or more ruthless than their rivals. But that explanation just feels incomplete. It misses the one ingredient that turns a competent manager into a world-changing force. See, good leaders direct people. They set goals, delegate tasks, and measure results. But great leaders do something on a whole other level. They don't just command loyalty, they earn a devotion that seems almost superhuman. Their people don't just follow orders, they adopt the leader's cause as their very own. How? The answer lies with a man who, over 2,000 years ago, conquered most of the known world before his 33rd birthday. A man whose name is synonymous with greatness, Alexander the Great. And the key to his success isn't what you think. By any standard, Alexander the Great was a military genius. He inherited a strong army from his father, sure, but it was his leadership that launched it into history. He won battles when he was ridiculously outnumbered, like at the Battle of Issus. He conquered cities that were thought to be impenetrable, like the island fortress of Tyre, by taking on an insane engineering challenge, building a massive land bridge out to sea. Now, you might think he succeeded because of his tactical brilliance and inspiring vision. And while he had both, so did other brilliant generals who are now just footnotes in history. So what made Alexander different? How did he lead a diverse army of Macedonians, Greeks and people from nations they had just conquered, many of whom were historic enemies, across thousands of miles of hostile territory? His men followed him not just out of duty, but with a fierce, personal loyalty. They followed him into the heart of the Persian Empire, through the brutal Gedrosian desert, and all the way to the edges of India. They put up with starvation, savage warfare, and years away from home. Why? The easy answer is charisma. But charisma is vague. It doesn't tell you on how he did it. To find the real answer, we have to look past the grand battles and zoom in on the small, deliberate actions Alexander took every single day. And this is where it gets interesting. The secret to Alexander's power wasn't a secret at all. It was right there in plain sight, but it's something we tend to overlook in our modern search for leadership hacks and shortcuts. When Alexander's army marched, he marched right there with them. When they were thirsty, he was thirsty. There's a famous story, told by ancient historians, where his scouts, after a desperate search, brought him a helmet full of precious water. His entire army was watching, parched and exhausted. Alexander took the helmet, thanked his men, and then, in full view of everyone, poured the water onto the sand. He was making a statement. I will not drink while you go thirsty. I am one of you. Your hardship is my hardship. This wasn't some calculated PR stunt. This was the very core of his leadership. He consistently closed the gap between himself and his men. He led from the front, fighting in the thick of battle, and his body was covered in scars to prove it. In one speech, he even reminded his men of his wounds, saying they were from stones, arrows, and clubs, proof that he shared their risks personally. This wasn't just about sharing physical hardship. It was about creating a deep, psychological bond. He unified his multicultural army, not by forcing them to abandon their identities, but by weaving their own stories into a new shared narrative. A grand campaign against a common enemy. He didn't just command his soldiers, he became one of them. He ate with them, fought with them, and bled with them. And because of that, they didn't just fight for a king. They fought for a brother in arms. They followed him to the ends of the earth because they knew, without a doubt, that he was right there with them. So what is this one trait? It's not just having a vision. It's not just being good at execution. It's something deeper. The forgotten skill that separates good leaders from great ones is shared experience. Shared experience is radical empathy in action. It's the deliberate choice to close the distance between yourself and your team. It's the commitment not just to understand what your people are going through, but to actually experience it alongside them. It's knowing that real power comes not from authority, but from accountability and service. Good leaders have empathy. They can imagine what it's like in someone else's shoes. But great leaders put those shoes on and start walking. Alexander pouring out the water, that was shared experience. Fighting on the front lines, that was shared experience. This trait builds a level of trust that no instruction or incentive can ever buy. When people know their leader is truly with them, not above them, but with them, their motivation completely transforms. It flips from compliance to commitment. They aren't just working for a paycheck, they're part of a shared mission, led by someone who has skin in the game. This is that unstoppable edge. An army of mercenaries will fight for pay, but they'll run when the odds get too long. An army of devotees, united by a leader who shares their reality, will try for the impossible. This is why good leaders build companies, but great leaders build movements. This principle isn't just for ancient warlords. It's a universal pattern you see in the world's most transformative leaders. Look at Abraham Lincoln. During the American Civil War, he didn't hide in an ivory tower. He constantly visited troops on the ground and met with his generals, immersing himself in the brutal reality of the war. That's why his famous speeches, like the Gettysburg Address, resonated so deeply. They weren't just eloquent words. They were soaked in a genuine understanding of the nation's suffering, an understanding he gained by sharing in its burden. Or think about Nelson Mandela. After spending 27 years in prison, he could have walked out seeking revenge. Instead, he chose reconciliation. His incredible moral authority came from the fact that he had endured the absolute worst of the system he was trying to dismantle. His suffering became a bridge, not a barrier. When he spoke of forgiveness, it carried enormous weight because he was asking others to do something he had already done himself, on an epic scale. He used his personal experience to connect with everyone and guide them toward a shared future. In every case, the formula is the same. The leader closes the gap. They show, through their actions, that we are in this together. This builds a foundation of trust that makes truly inspirational leadership possible. So, how do you use this ancient secret today? You don't need to lead an army or liberate a nation to practice shared experience. It's a skill you can build anywhere, from a boardroom to a community project. First, get out of your office. The most important information isn't in spreadsheets. It's on the factory floor, in the call center, or in the break room. Spend time doing the jobs of the people you lead. Understand their frustrations and their small victories. This isn't micromanaging, it's connecting. Second, listen to understand, not just to reply when someone on your team brings you a problem. Your first job isn't to solve it. It's to hear them out. Making people feel genuinely heard is one of the most powerful ways to build a connection. It validates their experience and builds a rock-solid bond. Third, is share your own struggles. A leader who pretends to be perfect creates distance. A leader who admits to mistakes and is open about their own challenges becomes human. It shows your team that you're on a journey too, and gives them permission to be imperfect. Don't be afraid to show you're still learning. And finally, never ask someone to do something you aren't willing to do yourself, whether it's working late to hit a deadline or taking a pay cut during tough times. Your willingness to share in the sacrifice is the ultimate proof. It shows that your leadership is an act of service, not of privilege. For centuries, we've dissected the minds of great leaders, focusing on their intelligence and ambition. But we've overlooked the heart of their influence. The single greatest trait that elevates a leader from good to great isn't about standing out in front and pointing the way. It's about standing beside your people, sharing their burdens, and moving forward together. Vision and strategy are the tools of leadership, but shared experience is the fuel. It's the invisible force that turns a group of individuals into a dedicated, unstoppable team. It's the forgotten secret of Alexander, Lincoln, and Mandela, and it's the key to unlocking your own potential as a leader. If this idea resonated with you, subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden patterns of success. And let me know in the comments, which leader, past or present, do you think best embodies this principle of shared experience?